everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name's Allison and I write YA Dark Fantasy. Today we are going to be talking about how not to date your book. And what I don't mean by that is, hey baby, you want to date? What I mean is time period wise. You want your book to stand the test of time. You don't want something that is going to outdate itself and be very obvious when this was written. So I have 5 tips on how not to date your book, and let's just jump right into them. The first tip I have for that is technology references. And what that means is referencing current technology or current things that are very popular. Referencing my iPhone X or my Xbox One. Those things are going to be updated. They're going to grow with the technology. So rather than saying she reached in her back pocket and pulled out her iPhone X, you could say she reached in her back pocket and pulled out her phone. We don't know in 10 years if the iPhone is still going to stand the test of time. I've read many of books which reference Blackberries, Motorola Razors, and those things aren't around anymore. Even though those phones were really popular 5 years ago, they're not anymore, and you probably couldn't find them in a store ever again. So people who are reading this, they're gonna be like, what the heck is a Blackberry? I don't know what that is. So you just want to make sure your technology reference are very generic, very straightforward, and that doesn't go for science fiction kind of writing or time period pieces. So if you're writing in a time where the rotary phones were a thing and you mention rotary phones because that is the time period, that's very different. Number 2 is slang. So you don't want to use slang in your book that's very popular right now. I don't really know slang because I'm an adult and I don't hang out with teenagers all that often, but an example would be when I was in high school, my junior and senior year, YOLO was really popular. So if you wrote in your book hashtag YOLO or YOLO, I would read that and be like, oh, this book was written in 2012, 2013. You want to try to avoid using slang in your novel for that reason, because you don't want to date your book to 2012, 2011, 2013 kind of thing, because that was such a big slang word back then. Number 3 would be pop culture references. So this isn't like pop culture as mentioning the Beatles or the Rolling Stones or that kind of pop culture, because those pop culture references many generations know. Everyone knows the Beatles. Everyone knows the Rolling Stones. That's just a given, and so if you reference them in your novel, people are going to know, oh yeah, I know what that is, or they have an idea of what that reference is. But this would be like if I were to go into a book and reference Riverdale. Riverdale is a very popular show right now. Everyone knows what Riverdale is, even if you don't watch it, is what I meant. But if you were to reference oh, I'm going to go home and I'm going to catch the new Riverdale episode later, people 5 years down the line might not know what Riverdale is. There's a lot of shows that I mentioned that I watched in high school, like Pretty Little Liars or The Vampire Diaries, that people just don't know about nowadays, and I'm like, how do you not know about these things? Those were my favorite shows. But 5 years down the line, they're over. The movie and TV industry is moving so fast, they're not going to know what that is. So you want to try to avoid hitting those really, really time period right now references. If you're going to reference Pokemon or, like I said, the Rolling Stones or the Beatles, those things have been around for so long. Star Wars is another example that everyone knows about that, and it's not going to date your novel because they're still going on. Number 4 is branding. So I heard this at a writer's conference once, and they talked about branding. And the example they used was Dr. Pepper. So if you were to put in your novel, I took a sip of my cherry Dr. Pepper, that's dating your novel because you're using a brand. Dr. Pepper might not be a thing in 10 years when this person's reading your book. Yes, it has been around for a long time. This is more of a generic kind of idea of it. So instead of writing, I took a sip of my cherry Dr. Pepper, I took a sip of my cherry soda or cherry flavored soda. That way, you're not dating yourself, even though Dr. Pepper will probably be around 5, 10, 15 years later. You never know when a company is going to go bankrupt, when it's just not going to make any more products, or when people are just not going to like that product. So it's safer to write brandless kind of ideas. And number 5 is social media. So I've seen a lot since social media has become such a big thing. Lots of references of social media in books. I was reading this book, and I'm just going to make up character names because I don't even remember the characters' names anymore, but it was something along the lines of 2 girls talking, and they were like, I can't believe Jeremy took me out of his top 8 and replaced me with Cynthia. I know what that means because I was around during the MySpace age. I had a MySpace. I was too young to be on MySpace, but I had a MySpace. And I knew what that meant. But I'm thinking kids who never had MySpace, never experienced the MySpace age would be like, what the heck is a top 8? So this tip is to remove social media like aspects from your novel. You can have them in there, but don't specifically be like, I'm going on my Facebook to write about this, or I'm gonna slide into that kid's DMs, because like, 1, that's slang. 2, no one will know what Twitter or Instagram DMs were if Twitter and Instagram just magically go away one day. Not saying they are, but what if they do? What if Twitter's just like, okay, peace out, we're not gonna have Twitter anymore? No one's gonna know what sliding into the DMs are anymore. I would just steer clear of referencing social media too hard, because it's going to date your novel to the time when that thing or that app or that website was very popular. So those are my tips on how not to date your novel. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any more tips, leave them down below so I can learn a thing or two from you guys, because I really do learn a lot from my commenters. And I will see you next time, loves. Bye!